All right, good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, big question of the day, is the economy collapsing, and what is it that they should do about it, or what is it that we should do about it, or the powers that be should do about it, and however you want to ask the question. And most of the time, when I hear this comment or this question that is being asked, I think to myself, it's probably the biggest misunderstanding in the entire world is what is taking place within the economy right now, especially when it comes to monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve. And so when I say this, I say it not to try and be arrogant or cocky or anything like that, but really from the information that I have dug up and researched and shared over the last 5, 6 years here on YouTube, it has really shown to me, not just to me, but to many of the followers here on the channel, that they are definitely using credible threats or their words in order to conduct monetary policy. And now the reasoning behind it gets very deep. It has to do with raising neutral interest rates, and it really comes down to the position that we are now in, based on the fact that we are a fiat-based currency that has ever-increasing amounts of new money that's poured into it, that's separated the rich from the poor, and this goes back literally hundreds and hundreds of years. So to understand the economy in a 10-minute video is impossible. In fact, it's pretty much impossible to understand it in any kind of video that's a singular one or even a group of videos. It really comes down to a long time research that you have done in order to conduct yourself the most appropriate way. And I cannot emphasize that enough, that you are in charge of every decision that you are making, and you are the one who is in charge of your own economy. Once you recognize this, once you see it for yourself, now you can position yourself accordingly for it. And that has been the goal of this channel from almost day one, is to try and figure out what it is that I need to do in order to position myself to deal with the outcomes that are going to be most appropriate for me. That's raising my family and having a retirement. And my position in this world is so much different than anybody else's. Considering at 40 years old, I was very much in debt, deeply into alcohol, had no idea on what it was that I was going to be doing going into the future. And I figured out a way to then bring into my existence the ability to buy a house, the ability to have a stock portfolio, ability to even believe that there was an attempt at having a retirement in my life. Like, all these things started coming to me during a time in which that people say, it's the worst in history. It's all collapsing. It's all failing. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's the way I used to think too. That's what I thought too. And you know what? I was right. It was failing for me. Everything was collapsing around me, and it was right. I was so right about it. But I'm also right now. I'm right in that I can make it work. I'm right that I can position myself. So I was right in both cases. And you can be right in your case too. So if you believe that it's failing, then it's probably going to be failing around you. But if you think that you can actually position yourself to deal with the situation so that you can have a better outcome, that's correct too. Because there's people who are going to do that exact thing. And so now when I think about what it is that I can share with the people out there in order to help them understand what it is that they need to do, I really think about the monetary policy and what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing. Because what the Federal Reserve is doing is they are using their words to create a idea within the markets of what it is that's going to happen into the future, and then it actually creates that outcome. We are seeing this happening right now with mortgages. Mortgage rates are coming down. People are getting excited about participating in the mortgage market or buying into houses. Now, is it something to get real excited about? No, not yet. But you can see the evidence of how the credible threat of the idea of the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates is being pushed into the mortgage market, and how that works, right? Once you have people who have this belief that there is going to be lower rates into the future, they start conducting themselves in that way. Understanding why they needed to do this is really a very long, deep, hard discussion to have, but it really comes down to a neutral interest rate, the rate that is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy. And now many times this neutral interest rate is very elusive. It's hard to see it. Nobody knows exactly where it is. And when the Federal Reserve discusses this, they usually do it in the form of referring to it as R star, which is the amount of restriction that has taken place within the economy. And now understanding how all that works is so complicated, because even going to the Federal Reserve and looking at their own documents on it and listening to their speeches makes it very, very difficult to wrap your head around how it is that they come up with this R star. But to know that there is a neutral interest rate, that's when the Federal Reserve is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy, and that neutral interest rate exists somewhere. And that neutral interest rate during the great financial crisis, after the Federal Reserve took interest rates to zero, that neutral interest rate became very, very close to zero itself, meaning that the Federal Reserve had almost no room for stimulating the economy. Dropping the Fed funds rate far enough below neutral before hitting the lower bound meant that they had no room for monetary adjustment. This was a major problem for the Federal Reserve. This is the reason why they had to deploy the whole idea of quantitative easing, the asset purchases, going into massive money printing, taking the balance sheet from $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion, and then putting out the promise through the mainstream media narrative that they were going to keep interest rates extra low, extra long for an extended period of time. Zero interest rate policy, ZIRP, remember it? Now, understanding that this ZIRP policy, low interest rate policy, the promise to keep low interest rates going into the future, had an inflationary expectation built into it. I mean, just think about it. Say it out loud. Low interest rates going into the future for an extended period of time, plus a lot of money printing, buying into assets. What would it do? It would create inflation. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what it would do. I mean, I say it now and it totally makes sense. Logically, intuitively, every single way that you mention it, however you want to describe it, that's what's going to happen. But it didn't happen, and that's what blows most people's minds, is that they don't understand the failure of the Federal Reserve to produce an inflationary scenario was the crisis. That was the crisis. They failed back during the great financial crisis, and they were in a serious, painful experience with their monetary policy, knowing that no more downward adjustment of Fed funds rate was going to stimulate the economy. They were essentially out the game. Even John Williams, towards the end of 2018, right, put out a speech, Monetary Policy Strategies for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World. This is probably one of the most incredibly telling speeches of what was about ready to happen coming into the COVID era. Listen to this. This is directly from the New York Fed president, John Williams. He had this to say. This is November 30th of 2018. Monetary Policy Strategies for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World. He says this: today we face an altogether different set of problems stemming from a very low neutral interest rate. This is where I was trying to explain. The Fed funds rate was very close to zero, and that neutral interest rate, the rate that neither accommodates nor restricts the economy, it's neutral, was also close to zero. That means dropping interest rates wasn't an effective tool. It wasn't going to work because they couldn't get far enough below neutral. Today we face an altogether different set of problems stemming from a very low neutral interest rate. That is, the short-term real interest rate consistent with an economy operating at its potential alongside low and stable inflation. Ironically, the problem we need to solve these days, listen to this, this is incredible. The problem we need to solve these days is the risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. Bang. The Federal Reserve was stuck. They were failing. They were failing miserably, and without an inflation expectation going into the future, they were going to absolutely crash and burn. That was the crisis situation. That was a crisis situation for them. Nobody really knew it at the time, and even I wasn't quite aware of how dramatic of an event this really was taking place back then. I did a video when I first saw this speech. I did videos on my channel probably within weeks of this speech being given. And I go back and I watch that video and I watch about some of the things that I was saying, and I was so clueless at the time. I mean, you got to think, this is 2018. All the study, all the research, all the things that I have dove into for all these years has brought me back to this speech, the one that I started with. And it was so telling at the time. He was saying it then, that they were going to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time after they had failed to produce an inflationary scenario, even though they had expanded the balance sheet by over $4 trillion. How are they going to do it? How in the world were they going to do it? He goes on to say this, right? Talking about the low neutral interest rate. What does a low neutral rate mean for monetary policy and anchoring inflation expectation? When a recession hits, central banks may not be able to reduce rates well below their neutral level to stimulate the economy as warranted by the effective lower bound on nominal interest rates. He says it right there. They had no downward adjustment of interest rates. Their tool was broken. The Fed funds rate was broken. Wasn't going to work. Right? Goes on to say this shortfall, right? This shortfall in monetary accommodations can't accommodate if you can't get below neutral. This shortfall in accommodations would result in less desirable economic outcomes. Less desirable? Come on, John. Quit sugarcoating it. You know it would have been a horrible event. Right? Less desirable? Yeah, that's less desirable outcomes. Less desirable economic outcomes during recessions and recoveries. In particular, inflation would typically undershoot its desired target during these episodes. The persistence of below target inflation rates in many advanced economies over the past decade is a testament to this dynamic. You hear the problem that they were facing? See, this is the stuff that most people are missing. They missed this, right? They didn't realize that the Federal Reserve was absolutely desperate for an inflationary scenario in order to save their monetary policy. John Williams was describing it in detail back in 2018. He talks about the problems that is faced with the low inflation expectation. And now, the problem that they wanted to use to fix it, it was average inflation targeting. This is what he says. This is after the quantitative easing, the zero interest rate policy. This is after all that stuff that everybody said was going to create an inflationary scenario, and it failed them. This is what John Williams said that they were going to do. Average inflation targeting, whereby the central bank purposefully aims to achieve an above target inflation rate in good times when the lower bound is not constrained. Properly designed and implemented, such an overshoot can offset the inflation undershoot during bad times, so the long run average inflation and inflation expectations are in line with the target. Well, what do you think happened here after the COVID event? See, we had ultra low inflation that didn't really produce the outcome that the Federal Reserve was looking for. Even though they had printed up all this money, they were failing to get to the 2% target. But he says, if we let inflation run out extra long for an extended period of time, then we can make up for the shortfalls from the previous misses of the target, and so that the long run average inflation rate is at 2%. That's really interesting to think about. How is it that they are going to get the inflation to run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time? Right? Now, let me see if I could bring it up here. We go to the makeup strategy. Right? Now, if you go and just Google, I didn't leave a link down in the description for you guys, but if you go and you just Google the makeup strategy, you'll be able to find it for yourself out there on the internet. The makeup strategy is the tool that they were going to use in order to create an inflationary scenario. Now, you can actually find not Ben Bernanke, Jerome Powell talking about the makeup strategy and how it became irrelevant. And now a lot of people heard that and they think, yeah, the idea of trying to make up for the shortfalls from the inflation had become irrelevant. That is not the truth. COVID meant that the makeup strategy, where they were going to actually purposefully do it, became irrelevant because COVID was taking care of business. The outcome was the same. They were still looking for elevated inflation to make up for the shortfall so that they could have a long-term average inflation rate of 2%. That was still the plan. That never changed. But when COVID stepped in and says, hey, man, we're going to cut off the economy and we're going to, create all these shortages and we're going to do all the stimulus spending and it's going to create the inflationary scenario, they said, hey, put that dang makeup strategy away. That thing's irrelevant now, man. We don't need that thing. We got COVID taking care of business. A lot of people miss that. They didn't believe that at all. They thought the Federal Reserve had lost control of inflation. That is absolutely not true. February 7th of 2025, one of the most recent reports given to Congress, February of 2025, just a few months ago, really, if you think about it, it says this: the inflation rate over the long run is primarily determined by monetary policy, and hence the committee has the ability to specify the long run goal for inflation. The committee reaffirms its judgment that the inflation at the rate of 2% as measured by the annual change in price index for personal consumption expenditures is most consistent over the long run with the Federal Reserve statutory mandate. The committee judges that long-term inflation expectations that are well anchored at 2% foster price stability and moderate long-term interest rates, and hence the committee's ability to promote maximum employment in the face of significant economic disturbances. In order to anchor long-term inflation expectations at this level, the committee seeks to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time, and therefore judges that following periods when inflation has been running persistently below 2%, appropriate monetary policy will likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. From the time that John Williams had talked about it in 2018 until at least February of 2025, that was the goal. Let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve the 2% target over the previous 10 years. Now, they have made up for that inflation. They are now targeting 2% again. The difference from then till now is before they would let inflation run hot. Today, they are now trying to get inflation to 2%. Now, this is not going to change people's belief. It's going to all of a sudden dawn on them that they were looking at it wrong. Now that they see it, they're going to say, well, this is the way I've always seen it. Yeah. Incorrectly until now, understanding that the 2% target wasn't the target over the previous years, as they were letting inflation run extra hot to make up for the shortfalls from the previous 10 years. After all the money printing and quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to do it for them, they were able to get an inflationary scenario to make up for the shortfalls, get the average inflation, the long run average at 2%, and now they are targeting 2% again. The difference is that now if inflation runs below 2%, they will try to get it back to 2%. If it runs above 2%, they will try to get it down, letting bygones be bygones. But up until just a few weeks ago, when they changed the consensus statement, they were pushing for elevated inflation in order to make up for the shortfalls. Way different from a 2% target. Right? Most people miss that. And that was something that I tried to be so clear and so direct on, and showed so many times within the Fed's own words that that's what they were attempting to do. Most people thought that the Fed lost control. When they think that the Fed lost control, it raised the inflation expectation, in turn solving the Fed's problem. So different from what most people see. And this is why they were making incorrect decisions. Right? It's because they didn't understand what the Federal Reserve was attempting to do. They thought that the Federal Reserve was failing. And because they heard all these big-time economists out there saying the Fed's running around and bumping around like Mr. Magoo, and I'm thinking to myself, no, they're not. That is not what they are doing. And anybody who has that belief is literally giving power to the Federal Reserve. I know it's the most backward things for most people to hear, but that's the reality of the situation. They were desperate, dying, going to fail if they did not find an inflationary scenario into the future. They had something called the makeup strategy, and then when COVID kicked in, it saved them. It absolutely saved them. And every single hyperinflationary tale that was being told out there was only lending even more power to the Federal Reserve in order to solve the problem. How long am I into this? 20 minutes. That's a good 20-minute rant there. Let's go and answer some questions and, break down what it is that people need to hear next. All right. Okay. Same yet again is productive. I agree that many of us have heard this before, but many haven't yet. All-nighter, thank you so much. Well, this is the thing. There's only one correct story. There's only one real story. Right? There's all kinds of interpretations, meanings, and differences that people can tell. They can twist it and make it whatever they want, but there's only one correct story. My story doesn't change. So you hear the same story every time because my story isn't changing in order to fit the narrative. I blast right through the narrative. The narrative doesn't control my story. My story is the same every time because there's only one. Everything else is make-believe. Everything else is misinterpretation. Everything else is misguided, right? What's the TLDR of the collapse being underway? It's not a broke system yet. That's right, Deja. All right. Thank you all night for being up in here too, brother. I really appreciate you, man. They got their unemployment numbers. It's me, all-nighter, $1.50. All right, what are you saying that you were trying so long ago to say? This seemed clear to me this time. Why not then? It's because the more times you hear it, the more clarity you get out of it, the more you start to pick it up, the more sense it starts to make as you start to essentially disassemble your past belief systems that this theory is now proving to be right against, right? So the more you hear this theory, the more you understand the monetary policy being delivered by the Federal Reserve itself, the more you internalize this, the more you start to break down your former belief system that was probably had a lot to do with the mainstream media narrative. Once you get through that, then all of a sudden this stuff starts to clear up. Like, it's like kind of like the muddy water starts to clear. It's like the fog starts to lift, it's like, all of a sudden you got the right set of glasses on, right? You got the right prescription on, and now this lens is now clarifying everything that you're seeing out there because, again, it doesn't change. It just doesn't change. Sometimes the Federal Reserve is going to change the way that they are communicating. That communication change that they have that they put out there, that is the monetary policy. And now we have to listen carefully to what it is that the Fed is delivering for a message, and then how it is that the mainstream is interpreting that message. Right? Because when we listen to that is the monetary policy being delivered. I had very little doubt in my mind right now that they're going to lower interest rates, but it doesn't really matter. Interest rate adjustments take 6 months to a year before they really impact the economy because there's a lag time from the time that they're actually adjusted to the time they actually hit. Understanding that means that it doesn't really matter what it is that the Federal Reserve does here, in the very close timeline. That doesn't matter. The message that they deliver with it is by far the most important thing that matters. All right, let's check out the super chat. Thank you so much, Nate B, $5. Most older NYC condos in poor, rough areas now have $2,000 monthly HOA fee. People dumping them at over 50% off, still not selling. It's a crisis. Yeah, and you know what's funny about that is like at the same time here in my area, there is an unreal amount of people who are looking for a place to live. They're looking for apartments. Even one of the guys I work with, he was saying it, man, there is no place around here to live. And so and I understand that I am in a very unique situation up here in the Pacific Northwest in Astoria. It's growing like it's definitely a trendy, changing community up here that's not like it used to be, you know. And so I understand this is kind of like a unique place. You know? What is the possibility that a deflationary to occur that might catch the Fed off guard? Okay, so in that sense, what I would think the only thing that would really catch the Fed off guard is if an extreme amount of dollar-denominated debt started to come due before they realized it. Okay, so like that's difficult to know how much dollar-denominated debt exists outside of the world, outside the United States, out there in the globe. Knowing that there are nations, countries, corporations, people, individuals who have written contracts that are due in dollars that don't have anything to do with the United States. They don't have anything to do with our banking system, our government, our corporations, our people, nothing. They have nothing to do with the United States whatsoever, but they did write contracts that are due in dollars. Now, when those contracts come due, and who knows when they will, and they will at some point come due, that is going to demand dollars. When that dollar demand goes up, it is going to create a hell of a strong dollar situation. And if the dollar strengthens, that means everything else is going down. So dollar liquidity crisis or dollar strengthening, it's kind of a deflationary scenario. They can all be kind of the same thing. Yes, it does, because these countries don't want to join the Treasury bond market with high yields and buy gold instead. That means they have to print money to fix this. All right, D-Ski Valley. I don't know if you've looked, but there is more foreign holdings more foreign investors holding U.S. Treasuries now than in any time in history. It was something that we actually just recently discussed here on the channel. And the idea that the foreign holders of U.S. Treasuries don't want U.S. Treasuries is absolutely incorrect thought. There is no way in the world that there is anything else out there that they do want, because they don't trust anything else out there. Now, gold is a trustworthy item, and don't get me wrong, I am a big giant fan of precious metals, especially in the physical holdings of precious metals, but they're also very cumbersome, and they are very unique in the sense that Gresham's law causes them to be the good currency that gets hoarded away, and nobody's going to be using gold to do transactions, but they will be using US Treasuries to do transactions. So unless you don't want to do transactions, which could be a lot of people out there saying I just don't want to work at all or eat or do anything else, there's a great number of people out there like that. But for the majority of the people, they want to do more business this year than they did last year, and if they want to do business, then they have to do transactions, and if they're going to do transactions, they have to do it in dollars. There's nothing else. It's just dollars. So if you're going to do deals in dollars, you might as well be doing deals in U.S. Treasuries, because U.S. Treasuries at least pay an interest rate. Okay? There's nothing else out there. That's it. You know. See, this is the reason why I have very little doubt in my mind that the dollar will be the world reserve currency next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. Because there's no other nation out there that's going to step up and replace what U.S. Treasuries are. Nothing. Literally nothing. There's not enough currency out there, and there's not enough trust. People don't even trust the dollar, and it's the one that's doing it. So how are you going to introduce something else that's going to be more trustworthy than the dollar? No, you're not. If gold was a better form of currency to do transactions, then that's what it would be doing. Right? It would be knocking the treasuries off its pedestal, and it would be doing the transactions. The reason why it's not is because people would hoard it. They hoard it away, and it would limit the amount of transactions. And if you want unlimited amount of transactions to do, it's going to happen with something that is plentiful out there, and there ain't nothing more plentiful than U.S. debt. Period. All right, you gave me a lot of info to consider and agree mostly, but please address the dollar demand in regards to using other currencies, especially the yuan, and then periodically not settling in gold. Yeah, but please address the dollar demand in regards. See, the thing is that it doesn't really matter if people don't, like, it's like literally having, like, if you had all the world's currency in your pocket, like just literally, you open up your wallet and you literally have all the currency, all the money literally in your wallet, like every single paper dollar currency, you have it all in your wallet, right? And you went through all the money, right? There would be this massive stack of dollars and this little itty bitty tiny little bit of other currencies, right? So you go out there to do all the transactions and you're like, okay, let's go out there and do a day's worth of transactions with all this currency. You pull out everything but your dollars and you go, and then that's it. You'll be all done within minutes. You're done for the day. No more transactions because you're already out of currency. So if you want to continue doing transactions for the rest of the day, you better pull out them dollars. And then for the rest of the day, for out of your 8-hour day, you're going to spend 15 minutes spending the other currencies until they're gone, and then you'll spend the rest of the day using dollars because that's all you have left. And that's seriously how simple you can put it to understand that there is nothing else out there that even comes remotely close to the amount of dollars doing transactions. Even if you wanted to do it with the other ones, you would be out and that would be it. All the transactions would be over because there's simply not enough transactions to do. Not using that currency. There's not enough of it. There's not enough safe and liquid assets. There's not enough backing from people saying, yes, I will take on that safe and liquid asset. There's not enough people who are participating within that system in order to say there is enough currency to do all the transactions. The only country that is doing that is the United States. Period. End of story. Nothing else even comes close. Right? All right. Thanks for the live, good buddy. Yeah, you bet, man. Thank you so much for the $5 and the support for the channel. You guys are so awesome. And I really appreciate everybody coming out up here and breaking this stuff down, A lot of times people will hear the words that I use and they'll think, oh man, you must be against gold or you just against the gold standard. And I think to myself, no, not at all. Like, if you like the gold, get on the gold standard. You don't have to wait. You can be on a gold standard today. You can eliminate all your assets and everything else, put all your money 100% into gold, and you would be out of it. You would be out of the third-party system at all, right? But it's very difficult to go and buy something with that gold coin, isn't it? Because gold doesn't really function as a good currency. I mean, it's a currency. It can, trade goods and services for other goods and services, but it's not really that efficient at it. Dollars, super efficient at it, but it doesn't hold any value. Okay, so one of them's money, gold, and one of them's currency, fiat dollars. Now, I got two different things that I'm looking at. I got money and I got currency. What do I do with my currency? I trade it for other goods and services. I put it into places that's going to have a return. I don't look at dollars being some sort of valuable thing that's going to hold value going into the future and how my purchasing power gets lost over time. No kidding. Duh. Right? It's a fiat currency. Of course it's going to do that. It was never meant to hold value. And now that I have relinquished it from the ability to even do that, now I can consider it for what it really is intended to do, and that's to trade goods and services for other goods and services, or to be deployed into some sort of asset that's going to have a return. And that's it. And now, hey, man, that's great. Whatever happens to the dollar, up, down, sideways, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? It's not meant to be anything other than what it is, and that's a currency. What about Bitcoin transactions? Too slow, right? And again, you can't have Gresham's law. right? Understand Gresham's law says that good currency will be chased out by the bad currency. So if you came to me and it was just like, hey man, I want to buy your computer right there, right? I got this computer for sale. And in one hand, you got fiat currency. In the other hand, you got gold and you got your digital wallet that has Bitcoin on it. And you're like, hey man, which one of these things are you going to use? Right? And you come to me and you ask me, which one of these currencies? I got all three of these all three of these monies, right? These currencies here in front of me. Which one are you gonna use? Want me to use? And I'll be like, I don't know, I don't care, whatever you want. Like I'll accept any one of those things, whatever you want to use. Are you really, 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 really gonna hand me that gold coin, or are you gonna hand me the fiat currency? Okay? You're gonna hand me the fiat currency because anybody who understands gold or Bitcoin is gonna put the gold and Bitcoin in their pocket. I mean, unless you just absolutely don't like Bitcoin, and then you'll probably get rid of that first. But for the most part, people look at Bitcoin being something similar to gold in that it's a limited, a limited money out there that then is going to be considered the good currency because anything that is limited is going to have more beneficial power inside of like purchasing power, savings for future. The good currency is always the one that is going to be hoarded away when the bad currency, the fiat, is the one that's going to go out there into the economy and actually perform the transactions. All right. So no matter what, like could Bitcoin physically do a transaction? Absolutely. I've done Bitcoin transactions myself. Right? There's like no doubt in my mind that Bitcoin can do a transaction, right? And there is ability to make sure that it does many transactions. The problem with it is that as you do many transactions, the most industrious people are going to hoard it for themselves, and then you will have other people out there being denied the ability to do transactions themselves because of that hoarding that has taken place. That'll happen with gold, that will happen with Bitcoin, that will happen with anything else out there that is limited. Fiat currency is the elastic money supply that allows the continuation of new money to pour into the system so that an unlimited amount of transactions can take place. The only problem with it is that if you have ever increasing amounts of new money that pours into the system, Cantillon Effect will kick in and you will have ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor. All right. UE while canning applesauce, nice combo. Wow, standard nursery. Sarah's actually canning pears right now. That's pretty funny. Speaking of which, next weekend, Saturday. Yeah, let's do it Saturday. Saturday, why don't we meet at the Coffee Girl? That's down at the end of what is it? Pier 9. What? I don't even know what. Not Pier 9. I can't remember. You guys look up Coffee Girl. I'm drawing a blank right now. That's so crazy to think. Anyway, we're gonna do a meet and greet there. Say around maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. Say around between 10 to noon. And we'll just hang out and chat economics. So anybody who's in the area and wants to come down next weekend on the 20th, I think that would be, to come down and have coffee and talk economics. We'll do a meet and greet, and maybe we'll see how this preliminary one goes, and then maybe we'll schedule another one for another time. Pier 39. Thank you, all-nighter. Pier 39. We were talking to appreciate it, man. There's so many piers down here. I forgot which one it was. All right. Thank you. I really appreciate that, man. All right. Uneducated Economist. If the collapse is underway, do you have anything you watch list to buy? The same thing that I always do, man. I mean, like, I kind of take the position in life that you are going to have the most accurate view of the economy from the position that you are standing in. Now, me, I stand at the lumberyard, right? I do retail sales. I talk I talk to many people who are in the logging industry, the mill industry, distribution industry. So I'm very close to that. And so that's the thing that I focus in on. Now, by focusing in on that, it has given me confidence to look at things like the home builders or lumber sales or something else like that, to know when maybe or think possibly that we are at the bottom on those things. That's me personally, right? And that's from my understanding of economics and the position that I have taken. I don't suggest people go and buy into the lumber industry or into the home builders unless you are in that industry yourself. Don't take that from my information because I'm just some dude on YouTube. Now you're going to have to listen to another dude on YouTube to get out, or this dude on YouTube. And if you happen to miss the video when I said to get out, then you're going to be like, oh shit, when do I get out? So again, like, I try to really encourage people to understand it for themselves and then look at their current position in life, not as a detriment. Like, your day job gives you more real-time information than you could ever possibly imagine. Like, everybody else, literally every day trader, every, economist, every politician, all of them, every banker is waiting for data to come out so that they can figure out what to do. That data, you live in real time. You experience it in real time. And then you have to live it, and then those people read about it, and then they make decisions. Think about that. You are ahead of the game if you can see it. You have to be able to recognize it. And that's where understanding macroeconomics to the highest levels that you can is going to give you the best position possible in life, because you are literally on the front line. Like, literally on the front line. You know how many customers are coming through the door. You know what your clientele looks like. You know what the phone calls you're getting. You know everything about it. And you're on the front line of it. You are experiencing it on a daily basis. And then after you live your life, somebody else reads the data on that and starts to make decisions. Think about that. All right? You're ahead of the game. You just don't realize it. All right. I still watch the airline stocks because I'm retired from there. See? Like, Deja Vu understands what it is that she's looking at there by following that. Like, I would up, down, or sideways on an airplane stock. I probably wouldn't. I would have to guess or do a lot of research or whatever. But when I'm looking at home builder stock or lumber mill stocks or distribution networks in general, and all the stuff that I look at, I have a much different understanding of what's happening within that industry, especially my understanding of macroeconomics from a working class point of view. It gave me such good information when it came to the lumber industry that literally hedge funds were listening to my information. Like, some dude sitting in a car talking about lumber sales from a retail position had hedge funds listening to me. I mean, George Gammon brings it up every time he sees me. He says, like, this is the dude who knew about lumber. Right? He invited me to go speak at his conferences. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and I mean, to think that I was the person that he invited to talk about that particular industry because I was so accurate about it, it's just still, like, it still blows me away. And I think to myself, if my vendors, the people that I buy lumber from, if they had a YouTube channel and an understanding of macroeconomics like I did, they would have been ahead of me, right? Because I was talking to my vendors going, whoa, what's going on? And I'm getting information from them that is profound. Like, so they had the information already and it was delivered to me. So there's people who were way ahead of me, but they wasn't delivering it out there on YouTube. So some dude sitting in a car, like, hey, let me tell you about lumber, right? Way ahead of everybody else, but I wasn't like I was the first one in the entire world to have the information. Other people had it, but they may not have recognized it. They may not have had a way to deliver it out there for anybody else to hear. And so you think about that, those people had the information too. Still fear-mongering in the truck, I see. Cal Gore. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You should probably just not watch. I mean, you ever thought about that? Like, if you think it's fear-mongering, you're actually adding power to my power pendulum here. So come on and comment and say what it is you got to say. But the more you comment, the more you think about my information, the more you call it doom and gloom, the more power you just give me. The more power you put into the pendulum, the more power it swings. And so I appreciate it, man. It's just like an algorithm boost. All right. Do you think prices will ever come down? What do you mean? What prices? Like lumber prices came down. Plywood prices came down. I see some vehicle prices are starting to come down, although not enough for me yet. Although they're getting there. I want a new car. All right, you're ahead because of your perspective and mentality. Talk with a lumber broker today who was very down on lumber industry, different perspective. Yeah, I'm not excited about the industry, that's for sure. And when like the thing that I invested in was not necessarily the lumber market. What I invested in was something that's tracking home builders. And now that dangerous, very dangerous, not what you would typically do kind of position inside of that was really based on something that I have been seeing growing within the home builders itself, which is a huge inventory of homes. Now, there's not a lot of homes out there for sale that are not new, right? Like people who have existing homes are staying in their homes. They're not like flipping their homes. So what is coming out for sale are new homes. New homes that are for sale are being sold by the home builders for the, not all of them, but for a good amount of them, right? So if the new home builders are the ones with the inventory and interest rates are going to be coming down, all right, and then they do come down when you see the mortgage rates actually come down, and that starts to spark invest or purchasing into the new home market, that money goes to the home builders who have just laid a bunch of people off. Now, just saying. Does that not sound like it's going to be like a windfall for the home builders? Like lower interest rates, less employees, right? And all this inventory to sell. I mean, it just sounded like they would probably do well. It sounds like a great setup. I mean, whether it was done on purpose or accident or just happens to be the place, the builders are the ones with the product, and that product is in demand, and that the ability to get that product is now going to become easier, less restricted going into the future, right? That's why I bought into it. That's it, right? And I could kind of feel it from the industry, like just being at the industry, that it didn't feel like it was getting worse, right? Now, when it comes to lumber sales, that's going to be a different story, right? That's going to be down the road a little ways, and we're going to have to wait and see what ends up happening with all the new home sales. And if there is a bunch of new home sales that starts to take place, and that inventory starts to clear out, then what do you think the home builders are going to do? They're probably going to ramp up production. So after the sales starts to increase and that inventory starts to deplete and the new build starts to come on, those permit issuance, that starts to rise. You see the home buyers, that traffic has turned positive. There's going to be a demand for lumber, and I just don't feel there's a lot of there's not, and I just don't feel that there's a lot of lumber in the system right now. If that be the case, what do you think is going to happen to lumber price? I mean, just saying, like, if this goes down the road that it's going down, and this is to continue, and we will find out if it does, what's the inevitable outcome from that? I would only assume that the lumber prices would probably go up. Well, if the lumber prices go up, the mills that are in production, well, how are they going to do? Probably pretty well, right? A lot of demand for their product and a high price for it. Yeah, they'd probably do well. And all the people who are saying greed and manipulation, they're the ones who are missing this. They're the ones who are missing this right now. Because when it happens, they're going to be like, oh man, I could have taken part in that. That must be greed and manipulation happening. Right? And this is like, you missed out. That's your problem. All right? Because you didn't see it coming. And that's me from this point of view. Right? Working class, boots on the ground, in the industry view. All right. That's not what Mr. Smith said when he went to Washington. I have assets, so I get the benefits other my age 36-year-olds don't, so they are having a hard time. Yeah. Local car lots selling new suddenly moved to used cars only lot. This is a big deal, as does new housing. I'm thinking we are going to be swimming in liquidity, cheap money, by EONE. What is that by what? All right. Makes sense. Let's see. Rates about to drop big time in the next few months. All right. How late do you guys want to hang out for? We got 299 people watching with 110 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. By hitting that like button, you can get the YouTube algorithm and pick up the video and spread it around for more people to enjoy, except for Cal Gore because he doesn't like these videos. All right. End of year. Ah, got it. That's really not that far off, though, the end of year. Enablers, supporters, how can you support genocide, invasion, traitors, humanity, crimes against humanity? Huh. Interesting. End of EOA is end of year, end of next year. Oh, man, all these little text phrases. Why is Bitcoin too slow of a payment method? Well, it's actually the protocol itself, like the Bitcoin network. I mean, because it only, what does a transaction every 10 minutes or whatever it is. But you got the Lightning network, like a secondary layer system that can essentially perform all the transactions needed. So it's not like it's impossible to use Bitcoin on a scale big enough to do all the transactions of the world or whatever. Like the secondary layer systems could totally do it. But it still limits it through Gresham's law that there's going to be a hoarding of Bitcoin that will then limit the amount of transactions that can happen out there because simply there just won't be enough Bitcoin to do all the transactions with, right? So no matter how fast you do them, it's the hoarding of a limited amount of currency that is out there, like whether it's gold or Bitcoin or silver or anything else. If there is a limited amount, then their hoarding by the most industrious people will concentrate the wealth, deprive the people out there from the ability to do transactions. You'll have depressionary events and then the redistribution of that wealth. Not a bad thing. It's just the way it goes down. So there will be pain and suffering and misery through the booms and bust cycles if that was to take place. But it's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is, and you just have to know how to position yourself for that one too. But most likely, it's not going to be something that is like chosen by the powers that be, because that's is to relinquish control when the hoarding of wealth begins, to literally keep it from redistributing back out there to the rest of the world is like a boot on the face of humanity. It's a lot of painful experience from like government control. Nobody really wants to go through that either. So there is no good or bad system. It's just how you deal with it. That's all there really is. Yeah. Except for Cal Gore believing that it's just nothing but doom. Deja still got Kashi bet 100 for no rate cut. I think things are okay and will remain. Yeah, I think they said many times that they wanted to be at neutral. They said many times that they wanted to be at neutral. And so, considering that the neutral interest rate has risen and could rise some more, it doesn't, I mean, I wouldn't push against the idea that the Fed could stand still and try to get the neutral interest rate, or have enough of a mainstream media narrative push the neutral interest rate higher, and then hope that they achieve neutral by doing that. Or they could essentially just lower the rates and probably achieve neutral, right? A combination of the two. And if you put that much forward guidance and signaling into the market, like, hey, we are going to be cutting, or at least the perception is so well internalized by the market that it creates that sort of outcome, they position themselves, they price it in. If the Fed was to do any other, it would be a shocking event. So they would be delivering that with a message, and whatever that message is going to have a very, very profound impact. But if they cut and then they deliver a message, it's probably going to be pretty mild, right? Because everybody's expecting it. But if they do something that that the people are not expecting, that message would be very, very, what? What did they say? Because it's all about the message, right? What will people do if there are fewer jobs in the future? How will people earn income? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, people will figure it out. People are very creative and resourceful. And, I mean, they said that when, what is going to happen with all the telephone operators when, it all goes from switchboard operation to whatever digital switching, whatever they do now. I don't know how they make phone work. But you know what I'm getting at? Like all these people, all these warehouses full of people who are doing these switchboard operations were all of a sudden going to lose their job. What are they going to do? And they all went to school and they became doctors and lawyers and politicians. And, it's just like they went off and found what they really should have been doing with their life instead of the mundane jobs that they have been doing. Right? They go off there and they follow their passion and they figure out how it is that they can be useful and contribute to this world in a way that is, more in line with who it is that they really should have been. That's what will happen. Alright, BRICS won't succeed in being a world reserve currency because of Thayer's law. Yeah. Inflation went up again in August. Grocery utility prices soaring. Unemployment rate is the highest in 4 years. Each job report is awful. Republicans currently control 3 branches of government. Help us. Baseball, 929. Yeah, Thayer's law. That one's good. It's it's complementary to Gresham's law, but it's the exact opposite. So to understand that if you have a bad currency, good currency is chased out, right? Just like selling this computer, if you want to come to me with dollars, you want to come to me with gold, and I say I'll accept either, most likely you're going to hand me the dollars before you hand me the gold. But then when the dollar does completely collapse, then the good currency kicks in and chases out the bad. But the first currency, the bad currency, has to completely collapse before Thayer's law kicks in and people say, hey, I ain't accepting those dollars. I will only accept gold. That's Thayer's law. That's when the gold standard or a gold reserve currency or something of that nature can then have its chance. But even then, it most likely won't take place. Because what's going to end up happening is that somebody is going to want to eat and they're going to say, I promise I'll pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. And then so goes the credit system. All right, currently the dollar has dropped 14%. Took the British pound decades to give up its status. Have you heard? And essentially, like, when you think about it, like, how is it that anything else is going to be able to be that abundant to provide a safe and liquid asset? Like, there's like all the Bitcoin, all the gold, all the other currencies, all the other stuff combined doesn't come up with enough to be to compare in the amount of safe and liquid assets that are generated within the U.S. Treasury debt market. Like, it's just not even close. So it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and get rid of the U.S. dollar and the U.S. Treasuries and let's use something else. There's nothing. Like, you can't even, like, it's just like, well, hey, China, why don't you fill it up, And it was just like, China. Okay, you're back. Sorry, I had the Wi-Fi on. It's probably all sketchy. Anyway, I turned that off. All right, I agree. The process is in place. I do not agree and undoubtedly will play out. Universal basic income is coming. British pound is still used. Yeah, so, I mean, the euro and yen and all these other currencies are used. Like, there are lots and lots of currencies that are used to do world trade. There's just none of them are abundant enough to do the amount of transactions that are demanded in dollars. Like, you just, like, if they were like, hey, let's get rid of the dollars, then there would be no transactions being done. because there's simply not enough currencies out there in all the other different forms to provide in an abundant quantity to fulfill all the demand for transactions. There's just not enough of it. That's the problem, right? And then trying to get enough of that other currency literally means that you are going to have to put your retirement into Chinese government bonds. Are you going to do, like, literally the United States would have to do that, the people, right? Because that's where all the money is. It's in US Treasuries. All right, what time is it? 1 hour into this. Are we still going, guys? 193 people watching. This is quite a bit. Thank you so much for joining in on today's live stream. We got, what time is it? It is almost 4 o'clock. I have bingo tonight. Anybody who's in the Astoria area who wants to come and hang out for bingo, that starts at 6:30 at the Workers Tavern. Come check it out. It's a great time. They will give some money based on politics while starving out others of all opportunities, food, shelter, security, healthcare, and life. What community? That is a very, very difficult, like, understanding of the economy. I think it would really do you better to understand that Cantillon Effect is playing out, and what you are actually describing is the symptoms of that. There's nothing that can be done to stop it, and as much as you believe that there is, because you can pinpoint exactly where it is that the problems lie, to understand that this is something that had created from an ever increasing amounts of new money injection that has come into the system, that has now given these people the ability to literally have power over what a lot of other people feel is like their lives, right? It came from this ever increasing amounts of new money that has come in. And to think that there is something that you can do to control it or stop it is really like begging for a painful result. Because there's nothing that could be done. Like, every time you say, can we do something about this? It's like injecting more money into the system, and then it gets worse. And I can prove this because literally there is no time in history in which that you can say, hey, it got better over these, centuries, right? You might be able to pick out a moment in time and say, well, this 10-year isolated period worked out really well, right? Or there was this rise of this industrious nation that brought on the higher standard of living. All those situations that you can describe are all cyclical, and they will eventually fade and churn, right? It's to understand that Cantillon Effect will take place anytime that you have new money coming into the system. You will separate the rich from the poor, and you will find evidence of it everywhere you look, and you will find blame from all the powers that be. But knowing that their power would never have existed in the first place if you weren't industrious first, right? That's the problem. We were actually really, really good. The American people were too good at what they did. They were very efficient, very strong, very awesome at what it was that they were producing, and they were able to sell that production out there to the world, and the world sent us their money, and we had an abundance of money, and so went into corruption, right? It was corrupted before that, but it doesn't matter, right? It just lends even into more power of corruption, and it's going to happen every single time. Right? No matter how you inject new money into the system, whether it's through production or debt issuance. Our economy right now is based on 75% service and 25% goods. On Fox News, I saw Brain Kill Me say that if homeless people didn't want government help, they will go to jail or get an injection to die. I think they're already I think they're self-inflicting the injections to die, aren't they? Like, I don't think you would really have to do much on that front, you know. It was just like either get help or die. And it was like, oh yeah, I think that's already kind of the case. You know, I don't, right? I mean, it was just like, I've seen the videos out there. These people are all messed up, man. I mean, they're just rotting from the inside out and like even from the outside in. And like, there's just nothing that can be done to help them. And, you know, yeah, like it's just a matter of time. Like, I mean, yeah, so it's either help or they're going to die from lethal injections from their own doing. You know, it's just like, you know. All right. Just liked and subscribed. You should be a professor, honestly. No BS. Teresa, thank you so much for that comment. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I'm going to try and figure out a way that maybe I could do some courses for you guys. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what it is that I need to set up. I'm going to be talking with some people real soon about that. So, you know, as far as understanding and learning and trying to internalize this stuff in a way that is going to be most helpful and useful to you, I know that self-education is the only way to do it, right? It's because there's really nobody else who can own the economy for you. You are the only one who can own the economy. And a lot of times it's just a handful of understanding of some economic theories that are out there, and then a lot of questions, a lot of research, a lot of reading. But when you start understanding these underlying economic forces, it starts giving you a better perspective on a lot of the information that is being pushed out there, because most people misinterpret the information. They give it meaning in a way that they probably shouldn't, right? Um, and you have to think like everything is through your own lens. Like if you're very big into politics, everything that you see will be a result of politics. Right? Like everything I see is an economic event. Everything. Like I mean, I look out there and I see how many new cars are for sale. I look how many new like dealer plates I see. I look at when I go to a restaurant, I look to see who's at the restaurant, how old the people are, whether or not there's kids at the restaurant. Like everything is an economic story being told everywhere I look, because that's what I think about all the time. Right? And so it's just the same for everybody else. And understanding this stuff for yourself, not necessarily understanding it the way like, you know, you need to think about it this way, you know, it has to happen like this. A lot of times I kind of do that myself here, but really I always try to encourage people to use this information in conjunction with all the rest of the stuff that they are looking at. Because again, like I'm just one dude out here on the internet. I do a lot of research, I do a lot of study, but it's my study, my research for the position that I've taken. It may not be the same for everybody else, but the information could be useful in conjunction with other people's information, right? You know? Big Mac index, I only think in terms of how many Big Macs things will cost. Well, it's actually a pretty accurate way of going about it. The Fed won't cut rates this week. You don't think so? I think it would be very difficult for them to deliver a message that isn't a shocking awe event that would definitely freak them out. I mean, like they would have to have a really good message delivered with that to not cut, right? I mean, because it's so like priced in at this point. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to call it out. I'm more interested in the message that they deliver. I can care less about the cut. Like I haven't really cared much about interest rate adjustments for quite some time. All right. And it's really because I can see how it is that they are guiding the markets by using their words, by using, you know, a delivery of belief into the market that conducts the market behavior in a way that then comes up with the outcome that they're looking for. I don't know how to keep re-saying it over and over again. It's just like I try to make up a new way to say it to maybe and so that people can internalize it differently, but I don't know how else to say it. It's just, that's just the way it is. All right, they should hike this week. I don't know, Matt. I mean, if they were trying to get to neutral, you can either raise the neutral interest rate by pushing an inflation expectation, or you can lower the Fed funds rate to neutral. How close to neutral are we really? Right? Can we get a combination of the two? Like, do they need to cut and raise the inflation expectation? Will that like achieve the neutral interest rate? Yeah, this live stream is good. Gonna start a second batch of applesauce. Right on, guys. This is so awesome. 4 o'clock. Okay, an hour and 10. Well, we can give it a few more. Let's say, let's see. We got 143 people who have liked the video, 264 people watching. Let's get it up to like 200 likes. Get it up to 200 likes in the next, 10 minutes or so, 10, 20 minutes, and then that would be awesome. There is zero chance they raise rates. You're smoking. Yeah, I doubt that they're going to raise them. I think that was just an opinion that he was saying that they should raise them. Yeah. Talk about Citizens United, please. Also, Waffle House is an indicator of how bad a natural disaster is. For once, I agree with Simon. Big bucket. Oh, what are you talking about? Big bucket. He just disagrees. He's like the devil's advocate. He probably just really loves the channel, but just, is kind of bored all the time, and so he just wants some sort of reaction, and so he just kind of, pushes back against the channel on every single thing I say, so that somebody can actually talk to him. What happened with all the talk of shadow Fed chairman? It's been silent for over a month on that front to undermine Jay Powell. I have no idea how that would do anything to change how the FOMC is going to be voting on monetary policy. That whole idea of getting rid of Jerome Powell and that somehow that's going to change what's going to go on at the FOMC or interest rate adjustments or monetary policy was probably one of the most delusional things I think I've ever heard after learning and studying things with the Federal Reserve, about the Federal Reserve. Like, that wasn't even a real, that wasn't nothing. It was like, that was completely artistic fantasy. It was like literally like just a pure imagination. And I'm looking at people who are like, oh man, what's going to happen when Jay Powell? And I'm like, there's 11 other voting members, 5 alternates and 2 alternatives who are voting on a strategy that has been in place for years. Like, they put out the consensus statement. They don't vote on consensus statement every 2 weeks, right? That consensus statement is a 5-year long strategy that they all try to vote to achieve. They don't make up their own strategy. They have their strategy to achieve this strategy, right? And they may have difference of opinion on how to achieve this strategy, but this strategy is the consensus statement, and they don't get to make up what that is at a whim. So switch Jerome Powell and you switch the voice that you hear talking about monetary policy. That's it. That's the only thing that changes. Anything else that everybody this is like, that is so wrong. There's nothing that changes about monetary policy. The only thing that might change is this dude's opinion on what it is that he's going to vote for monetary policy, along with the other 11 voting members of the FOMC, 5 alternates and 2 advisors. These 19 people make up the FOMC. Jerome Powell is literally just a spokesperson. That's it. He has no power beyond the words that he uses to deliver the message for the FOMC. That's it. That's his job. All right. And I mean, so every story, every politician, every economist out there who had you thinking of strategies and ideas and belief systems and everything else that was revolved around the transferring of the chairman from some imaginary person over, and removing Jerome Powell, completely pushed you off the trail. They had you so misguided and misinformed and, not knowing what it is to do. All right. You're thinking, oh man, what is going to happen when Jerome Powell leaves? What do I do with my money? And I'm thinking, what difference does it make if Jerome Powell's there? Do you think that the voice that you hear is going to all of a sudden give you a different belief system on what it is that you need to do with your money? Because he's not going to change anything about monetary policy. That's the FOMC. That's the consensus statement. Powell, words. That's it. He talks. And that's it. And so nothing changes. Nothing changes with Lisa Cook. Nothing changes with Jerome Powell. Nothing changes with Andrea Kugler, right? Nothing changes with any of that except for the voting position that they have in belief of what it is that they think needs to happen in order to achieve the consensus statement. That's it. That's what's happening. They don't come up and say, I think that we need to do a whole different monetary policy. That's not what's occurring. That's not what the chairman does. He doesn't even have the power to do that. He doesn't even have the power to do that. He has the power to vote on his monetary policy position to achieve the consensus statement that they all developed and delivered a few weeks ago. Okay? And that's it. Like, anything else is literally a distraction. Lisa Cook was distraction, Kugler's distraction, Jerome Powell's distraction, all that stuff is distraction. It's not, there's no profound change to the Federal Reserve with any of those people's removal. All right. He has a vote, but it represents 7% or something. Right? It's just one of 12, right? He had 11 other voting members. And then all these people who developed the consensus statement. And that's it. You know, and that's why I look at all that information that people are saying, dude, what's going to happen? And I'm like, that's not information. That's not information. It's complete fabricated, nonsense. It doesn't, like, it's like going and saying, man, look at all this wonderful food at McDonald's. Like, you got a ton of it there. It ain't nothing good for you there. There ain't nothing useful or helpful. Right? It's going to make you sick. Yeah. I guess it will fill you up. I asked AI and it said Powell is just the chairman. I did not verify that AI answer yet. All nighter doing research on it. Thanks. What do you guys? Simon is awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I really do. And I thank everybody who has ever come out here and, given the kind words to keep me going, because really that's what's done it for me. I never thought I would have anything like this in my life, and I certainly didn't think that I would ever be in a position in which that I would have ad revenue on a content creating platform like YouTube. Like, that to me is just like, yeah, I didn't see that one coming at all. Being here and doing this and knowing like what I'm doing out here is helpful and useful, that's what really does it for me. It does it for me more than anything else out there, is to think that people are like, man, I've been listening to you for a while, and before I was really nervous. I was a conspiracy theorist, I was an alcoholic, and by hanging out here, watching the videos and being part of the community, I've changed everything about my life. I've got a savings account, I'm off the alcohol, I'm starting businesses, and I hear all these wonderful stories of these people out there who are like changing their lives around based on the conversations that they've had here, to internalize a lot of the things that I have said with, the economic theories, and shared the perspective that I had. A lot of times people don't agree with me, and that's cool. Like, it's not the pushback that I have a problem with, it's like, that part I don't have a problem with at all. All right. And if people are taking this information and using it to be better in their career, better in their job, better in their life, in whatever way it is, man, however you're using it, that's what I want you to do with it. That's exactly what I wanted you to do with it. So it's awesome to be here, and it's awesome to see you guys, and it's, and I can never thank you guys enough for it. And I just want you to know how much I really appreciate it that you guys are here, and like being able to share this sort of like experience. I don't know where I would be without it. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Simon, I will vouch for the fact that I have made life changes because of this channel. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, man. I really do. And it's the people who have approached me, not only here on the internet or whatever, but in person too, shaking my hand, thanked me for doing all this. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like you finally know that you're doing something right. I didn't think I was doing anything right for the longest time. I didn't think there was anything to do right. I didn't think there was a right thing to do. I didn't even know that was the thing. And knowing that I'm doing the right thing just simply by some of the experiences that I've gotten from other people who have approached me saying, "Hey man, thanks for doing the things that you do." I mean, I just know it now. It's just like, man, I know the wrong path and I know the right path, and I don't always think that I'm on the right path, but I love the journey, right? And so, right on, let's go for it, man, because it seems to be working. All right, Google, do all Fed board members vote carry the same weight? The answer is interesting. Huh, I should read that. Links are in the description. Thank you, Brody. These amazing YouTube channels have helped me to help others, and that feels damn good. Yeah. You wouldn't believe it. Like, all-nighter it's funny. Like, I've gone to a few of these economic conferences, but all-nighter is like just as popular as some of the speakers. That's what's really crazy about it. Is like all-nighter is just like he does. I mean, he has a channel, but really he's just the dude, right? And he's out there and he has like made himself known. How, like, I mean, most people have to, like, really like do something that is so profound that people notice it. People notice All Nighter because he's just that cool. He is just that awesome. He's that engaging. He is that much of a conversationalist and that much of an interacting with so many people on a continuous basis that he has made himself that known. That is so cool. Like, I mean, I think about it. I was like, I had to put out 3,000 videos for anybody to notice me, and it was just like, he just has to be all-nighter. Da, da. I got so much exposure on all these channels. Thanks goes out to everyone. I'm up big on my house since I listened to you and purchased in early 2022. Everyone was screaming market crash, but you made sense. Thanks, Simon. Well, thank you, Keith. Even I was purchasing my house. Well, it was about that time too, wasn't it? I guess I can't even remember. It was 3 years ago. So yeah, had to have been, right about that same time. And I didn't know. Like, I thought for sure there would be a market crash, and I was just pulling my hair out trying to figure out what the hell it was that I was going to be doing, when the house goes underwater. And I thought for all this like horrible stuff, and I listened to all the hell that people were giving. And it was like, oh God, it was intense. And then it took every dime to get into it. Like, literally $42,000 I had to put to get into this house because I had a foreclosure in the past, and they, made me put 10% down, and it was just like this nightmare of a situation that I went through, and it left me with $300 in my checking account. Like, that's all the money that I had left when I bought this house a few years ago. And what was sad about it is that I had spent the money that I was going to use to pay taxes to get into the house, right? So then I had to come up with the tax money that year too. And it was just like, I was so broke for so long after that. And people, like, I just remember people coming in and talking to me. They were like, dude, man, so awesome on the channel. Really, congratulations. And the Rebel Capitalist and all this other stuff. I hear you're a millionaire now. And I'm thinking, I got like $3,000 in my checking account right now. Like, I gotta make my house payment, and I'm gonna have it. It's like, I am so far from $1 million, and I laugh so hard at that's what people really thought, and I'm like, huh, I mean, it's just like, I'll let them think it, because if they think it and I think it, then one day then I'll be there. And so, I'll just let everybody just think it, I guess. I mean, I didn't necessarily correct them on the idea. I just thought that was music, that people thought that. So, but that was really my experience with it too. It was just like, man, when I bought this house, I had nothing left, absolutely nothing left. And I thought, man, when it goes underwater, I'm going to have to deal with that. And it did such the opposite. It went up. It went up by a lot. And then when it did come down, it came down by a lot, but it didn't come down so much that it's like less than what I paid for it. It's still like $50,000, like 10% more higher than when I paid for it. All right. Like it's gone up 10% in 3 years. And that was after a dramatic rise and fall in the ZILLE estimate of it. 40, I had to put 10% down. I'm 10% up. I've got like, $100,000 worth of equity in this house, and I'm thinking, man, what a different position. What a huge difference from just a few years ago. I mean, 5 years earlier, I was like, I'd just gotten out of debt, like I had barely had anything. I was just getting it together. And I just knew, man, it was just like, don't buy a car. Don't go out and buy a car, man. Save that money. Put it into savings because you're going to be buying a house, right? Position yourself for that. And then it felt like I didn't have any other choice. It was the weirdest time. That's why I look back and I think to myself, man, there was something else happening to me. It wasn't by my own choices. Like I tried to say that I was doing this, like I guided it, like I made this happen, and I understand that the decisions that I made led me to right where I was at, but it really, really felt like something else had a hold of me. It felt like something else had a hold of me and was shoving me forward, and like, it's just like, dude, here's the house, here's this event that you got to go do, here's a huge popular YouTube channel, here's all this stuff, and I'm like, what in the world? Yeah, and I'm like, okay, it was just like, don't deny it, just go with it. It was just, all the scariest things in the world were starting to show up, and I'm like, it was just like, face it and deal with it. What else? What's the worst that could happen? That's like the other thing I was thinking. It was just like, dude, you're like just a few years ago, you were like 1 foot in the gutter. So what's the worst that could possibly happen? You're invited to go speak in front of 850 people who paid $800 to get into an economics event, and you're going to be on stage with the same people like Ron Paul and Robert Kiyosaki and Mark Moss and Lynn Alden and all the wonderful other speakers that are out there, and I'm gonna do that? Okay. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I can't believe I'm gonna go out there and do this. And then I did it. And I thought, wow, holy crap, I was on stage with these people. And I got huge compliments and I got a huge huge ovation. And it's like, wow, this is really happening to me. Some dude from nowhere doing nothing in his life decided one day that he was just going to turn it all around. And then it did. And that's really happened. And that can really happen. Yeah? Yeah? I'll say God has used UE in a big way in my life to inspire me to start my own business and get it in the flow. I'm 7 months in and it seems to be set to continue for the next year. Well, Standard Nursery, thank you so much. That's one thing that I really love hearing about is people starting their own business. I mean, there is nothing more exciting to me than to hear somebody talking about starting a business, and I don't care how small it is. I remember a buddy of mine, his daughter was talking like during COVID, baking cardamom bread, right? And I thought to myself, oh, I want some of this cardamom bread, right? So she was making this stuff and selling it and actually doing quite well, baking these breads and selling it off. And I thought, man, that is so cool. And she was like young at the time. And it's been a few years now, but if I remember right, she was like 13, 14 or something at the time. And I thought, man, that is so like inspiring to think like, she was just like, I want to start doing this at home. I'm going to make these breads and I'm going to sell it. And it was good. And it was good stuff. And she just got out there and started doing it. At 13 years old, I thought, man, that's really creative and that's really smart. Yeah. I mean, other people, I know buddies who mowed lawns and split firewood and did all kinds of stuff for money. And in the idea of like being in the flow of money, it's not hard. It's really not. Like most people don't even realize that it's actually a lot easier than not being in it. Like being in the flow is actually easier than not being in it. because not being in it is very difficult. It's hard, right? Scarcity is hard. Abundance is easy. And everything, no matter what it is. Think about, like, today I took Freddie fishing. Right? We went out to Coffinberry Lake. That's out at Fort Stevens. And, he took a bunch of lures and he took a bunch of stuff, and he just wanted to catch some fish. Like, he just wanted to reel some fish in. We weren't trying to take anything home or nothing like that. We just wanted to, just get out there and catch some fish. And, he tossed lure after lure and cast it a bunch of times. And he had one on for a minute, but it got off right away. And so he hadn't reeled anything in. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all these little tiny bluegill, right? And they weren't very big. They're just tiny little fish. And I thought, well, it would be fun just to bring in some of those guys, just these little tiny bluegill. And so I looked over, and somebody who has been fishing there before had left a little chunk of worm. And I kid you not, it was like maybe a half an inch long, this little piece of worm. And Freddie had a hook. So I went and got a hook, and I tied it on some fishing line that I actually found laying there. Like, somebody had wadded up some line and threw it off to the side on the shore. I took a chunk of that line, put that fishing hook on there, and took that bait that I had found, and I'm just with the hand line bouncing it around there in front of those bluegill, and I finally caught one. Right? And I laughed and we joked, and I said, "Hey, Freddie, I got the biggest fish," right? And it's just this little tiny bluegill is like that big. Well, that excited Freddie, so he was messing with it, and then he caught one too. We ended up catching like 5 fish on the same little tiny worm, right? And we were just like knocking it. It was like, as soon as we dropped it in there, boom, we caught another one, right? Really, really easy, nothing to it. It was a lot of fun. We were laughing and just, talking about how they were, how, the different, different ways that they were hitting the worm and stuff. And so we were just laughing and having a good time with it. But I thought about that for just a minute. It was super easy, and we were catching lots of them. And there was like nothing to it. Like, we were using old fishing line wadded up there, a hook, and a piece of worm that I found laying there. It wasn't difficult. It was easy. And we were catching lots of them. We weren't trying to bring them home. We were just trying to catch fish. And we were catching lots of fish because there was an abundant amount of them being there. It wasn't scarcity. It wasn't hard. It was abundant, and it was easy. Because everything in life is just like that. Right? Most people have an egotistical problem with it, and they say, "Oh, no, man, that's not fishing. You got to catch a big old bass. Watch me get all my equipment and my gear and my stuff and my kayak and all my fish finding and all that other stuff, and I'm going to go paddle out, and I'm going to use all this fancy equipment. I'm going to try all these different techniques, and I'm going to hit all the different... And if I don't catch that big, giant fish, then it is not a successful day." All right? Scarcity is hard. It took all that stuff, all that time, all that energy, all those things to come together to try and catch this giant fish. Or you can sit there and just catch little fish all day long and just have a blast doing it. Because the energy of being in the catching of fish was all we really wanted to be in anyway. Right? Because abundance is easy and scarcity is hard. Truth will ultimately prevail where pains are taken to bring it to light. George Washington, 1794. We can support independent media standing for diplomacy, truth, and peace on earth. When times are hard, recession, it's easier to see how to beat the competition. Yeah. It's easy until it isn't. Yeah. Simon is actually a time traveler from the Great Depression. I don't know. Sometimes, sometimes I start to appreciate the trolls. Make that story into a kid's book. Yeah, it really should be, huh? Simple as more. Yeah. No, it was fun. Like, Freddie got to the point where he didn't even want to use his pole. Like, we were, just sitting there with that little fish, and I was showing him, like, watch the fish. Watch how they react when you bring the worm up to the top of the surface and then let it fall. As it falls, that's when they come after it. That's the instinct. That's the fish, imagining something hitting the water, and now it's sinking through the water, and the fish wants to go after it because that's where the food is. It's coming down. So that's what you're trying to mimic. Like, be the bait, So he saw that, and every time he dropped it, he would watch like the fish kind of like, focus in on it as the worm was falling. Well, he got his technique, he was like, okay. So he started learning how to jig it, and so dropping it just the right way in front of the fish in order to get him to attract to it. And man, he started picking it up pretty quick. He must have caught a dozen of the little guys. It was cool. All right. Simple Simon goes fishing. Salutations from the Garden of Missouri. Right on. Copper Bones, I appreciate you, man. All right. Thanks to Dishes Every Day for lending us your time. Yeah. I'll let her know if she didn't hear that. Thank you, Deja Vu. All right. How far are we into this? An hour and 34 minutes with 196 likes. You guys did pretty good on those likes. Thank you so much for hitting it. We got 198 now. I don't know. What time is it? I got to go call bingo here before too long. What time is it? It's 4:30 right now. All right. What would you expect if the Fed hikes rates? I don't. I don't expect the Fed to do a rate hike. I think that they would stand still before they would do a rate hike. But ultimately, because the signaling has pretty much like locked in a rate cut, that it would be pretty much a good shocking event to not cut. But ultimately, it's the message that they delivered. So even if they were to do a rate hike, let's hypothetically say that they did, there's going to be a message delivered with it. Listen to that message, because whatever it is, that's going to have a huge impact on the economy. Right? It's going to have a huge impact on the markets and their perceptions and what it is. Remember, they know how to use specific words and sentences to alter the asset prices, and that the markets are listening to the words that they use, that and those words will create an either easing or tightening of financial conditions. The rate adjustment, not as important, right? I mean, it's important, but that's 6 months to a year down the road. What's important is the message. Absolutely, right? Nothing, and like literally almost nothing else is that important. Whether they cut, don't cut, or raise, spend time with your father fish is best. Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time doing it. All right. You guys are awesome, but I think it's probably time we call it quits. I'm gonna go get something to eat and then go call bingo later because we just work constantly out here. That's all we do. Now, if you guys happen to be in the Astoria area and you want to come out and play some games of bingos, it's at the Workers Tavern. Starts at 6:30, goes till about 9 o'clock. It's a heck of a good time. Lots of people come in. It's definitely loud and joking and good times for everybody, and we just kind of get away for a while so that we can enjoy the bingo game. And if you guys are out and about, you should come check it out. Okay, where are you going? When are you going on CNBC? I haven't been invited yet, which is surprising. Like, I thought I would have been invited to be on CNBC at this point. I remember one time Fox News had actually emailed me, and I was really pumped up about it. But when I responded, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do an interview with you guys. And then I realized they had accidentally sent me the email. Like, I don't know how this, like, they must have been checking me out or something. Checking me out. They must have been checking out the Uneducated Economist and just happened to have the email in a link or something like that and didn't mean to send it to me, because when I responded, they were like, oh, sorry, we were like talking to somebody else. And I'm like, oh, well, screw you guys, because I was kind of excited. I'm like, holy crap, Fox News wants me. All right, great analogy. Well, thank you. The key to any progress is to ask the question why all the time. Why is the child hungry? Was there war? Why was he killed? Why is he in power? Tony Benn. It's 7:30 p.m. in Florida. Oh my goodness. So much later, isn't it? It's like I love time differences through the different across the country, and then also like like the northern part of the country to the southern part, because it'll be like still daylight out, and people are like, man, where are you living that it's still daylight? Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yep, Fox lost. Yeah. Red Sox 6, Yankees 0. Go Sox. Love it. Simon on Fox News. Yeah. Wouldn't that have been something? Fox News missed out. Well, you guys should let them know that. We should set up a team, right? A team to get UE on different platforms, different places, and we'll just unload on them with emails and suggestions and requests to have the uneducated economist out there blasting credible threat theory and disassembling the mainstream media narrative. Man, that would be so fun. Some dude locked up in his Suburban, just tearing it apart. It would be awesome. All right. You took the bait too soon. Should have ignored it. Uh-oh, which one? All right. With Charlie Payne. East Coast has a leg up. They can work early without distraction. Then when they want to work late, they're still here plugging away. It's good stuff. Nice. That'd be cool. Just like how Simon got his current job having vendors call and ask for him beforehand. Yeah. I'll give it to you guys. I'll leave you with that story. Look, give it another 5 minutes here, and I'll tell you how the story on how I got hired, because that's true. All Nighters bringing up a story that I had told in the past. So when before I had the current job that I do now, I was working at a different lumberyard, and that lumberyard was going out of business. And so they were shutting down that store. We had the receivership come in, everything was going into auction, and the place was going to get shut down. We all knew it. We all knew that, it was just a matter of, a couple of more weeks and they would be permanently done. So all these people, there was 2 lumberyards that were shutting down at the same time. It was Gerhardt and Astoria. As Builder Supply, right? These 2 different stores, 2 different locations, both getting shut down at the exact same time. They were a single business. So anyway, all these people are going to have to go find a job somewhere. And now, what's the most likely thing you're going to do? Go to the other lumberyards, right? And go and see if you can get a job working for them. Well, there's only 2 other places to really go. There was ProBuild on one end of the county, and the place where I work now, City Lumber, over on the other end of the county. So it was just literally these are the 2 places where you could go to, and then the ones that I was working at were the 2 in the middle of the county, right? So those 2 get shut down. Now there's the 2 on each end, and then there's the Home Depot, right? So all these people are going to have to go find a job somewhere, and I'm just thinking, oh man, they're just going to get inundated with applications, right? All these different people are going to go to work there. So what I did is something kind of unique. Is that I had already picked a place I wanted to go, like City Lumber, right? And I already knew the guys down there, and I had talked with them previously. And I had worked with them previously too. I had worked there years and years and years earlier. So it wasn't like they didn't know who I was. So I went down there and I put a bug in their ear. It was like, hey man, this place is shutting down. Thought I would come down and throw an application in. And they're like, yeah, come down. We would love to talk with you. I said, okay, great. Now, I went back, I'm still working over at the other lumberyard that's shutting down. I'm still working at that place. And as I'm there, I start telling all the customers and the vendors to start asking about me at City Lumber. So with the customers, I said, hey, when you're calling around getting your bids for plywood or lumber or whatever it is you're getting bids on, ask for me first at City Lumber. Say, hey, is Simon there? And when they say, no, Simon don't work here, say, okay, I'm sorry, I just looking to get a price on plywood, right? Just drop it. Don't say anything else. Just drop my name and let it go, and then just ask for your bid, right? And so I had a few guys who were like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I'm like, cool, right on. And I had the vendors. I said, hey, mention my name to them. Just say, hey, Simon's, down there, and he's been mentioning you guys or whatever. So I had the vendors and I had customers dropping my name over there at City Lumber. So when I went down there to go do the interview, it was almost like, oh, okay, we got guys who are asking for you and asking for bids. They knew that I was going to be bringing customers, because the customers were already asking for me. So it was almost like they didn't have any other choice. They could have made a conscious decision. It was like, no, we're not going to take this guy back, right? But I mean, with the effort that I had gone in ahead of time to try and put my name out there and try to give them an idea that I was already there, I think I was just a shoo-in at that point. Yeah. And I totally got the job. Everyone should call Fox News and CNBC and say the same thing. Man, we should write a script. We should. Okay, so for those of you, like the members of the channel here, you have access to post things on the community portion of my channel. I don't know if you knew that. But the community portion, like where you can go and post like links to different videos or articles or just whatever you want to say, you can just comment too. The members have access to do that, so you can go over there and post whatever. If we want to have a discussion on that, on what it is that we want to do to try and do something like that, to try and create the uneducated economist, I don't even know what we should call it, like, you know, the interview team or something. I don't know what we should call it, but to try and get me out there on some of this mainstream media stuff so I can tear apart the mainstream media narrative and introduce them to the credible threat theory. Man, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Gosh, it would be so much fun. All right. AI scriptwriter. All right. Failed during Biden, then they just faked all the numbers. Hello, economist. All right, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Hour and 45 minutes into this live stream. Jeez, man, we take so much time doing all this, but it's fun and it's encouraging and it's motivation and it's informative and it's making us do the right thing, chase excellence so that we can have a better outcome for our lives. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for all the kind words. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for them super chats and then thumbs up. Thank you, everybody, for being here and being part of the members-only portion of the Uneducated Economist, supporting the Uneducated Economist in every way you do with them thumbs up and comments and just the overall general just viewing of the channel. Thank you. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.